All right, you all, good evening. Good evening. I hope everyone is doing well, having a pretty good Sunday. All right, y'all. So, y'all know I like to jump right in, right? Why support without systems fails, why it fails every time. So, we're going to jump right in. So, we're talking about, something that it affects families, educators, students, workplaces, any space you're impacted. Y'all, honestly, it affects all of us. So, if if you understand that this is really what's happening in the background, right? That sometimes people, when we feel like we want to help, we want to make sure we are showing our compassion, things like that. You all, we really don't always need to provide support, quote unquote. Sometimes they need systems. But a lot of times people get those two confused, right? We say if we're helping, we're providing support. So there's certain things we may be doing or saying, but there's better things to do or saying when we're providing a system to make sure that helps. Because I understand, I get it. I understand support feels loving, support feels helpful for sure, but it also feels active, right? You say, okay, I'm doing something. But again, support without systems that usually and often creates frustration, you all. So we're going to break down exactly why that happens and what actually works instead, okay? So, if you're into real conversations about growth, about parenting, education, confidence, and systems that actually work, make sure you subscribe if you have not. Y'all, drop in the comments for me before I jump in. I want y'all to jump in. Drop in the comments for me where you're watching from. And then, do you think this topic hits more for home, for school, for work, or for personal life, where we're talking about why support without systems fail and then what to do instead? Does that hit for you more at home, at school, at work, or in your personal life? Y'all let me know in the chat. Good evening, good evening. While y'all are thinking about it, slash, if you need to choose more than one, that's okay too. If you say Anika, all of them, right? That's fine too. Just let me know. Just let me know because I'm going to talk about a few of the spaces, obviously. So when we're talking about just personal and classroom together, right? Because I've seen students where obviously they're back and forth in the two main spaces, home and then class, school life. The student may have caring parents, they may have supporting teachers, they have a tutor to help, but they still may struggle. And then the question is, okay, why? Like, what else could we do? Really, the reality is because everyone was reacting, everyone was helping, but nobody had a system in place. There was no routine, there was no consistent check-in rhythm, there was no learning structure, and there was no plan for what happens when things go wrong. And notice I said when things go wrong because at some point, right, we have to expect and we know it's not going to be perfect every day, all day, day after day. So there was no plan in place for when things go wrong. The fact that we're starting to understand and unpack this, right? That everyone was helping, but really a system was needed. Y'all, once we implement a system, that changes everything. So we're gonna distinguish. We're gonna differentiate them a little bit more because we're starting to think about it like, okay, I understand, I can imagine. We're gonna get very specific so you don't have to imagine. So you know exactly what some of the details are. Let's see. Watching from Nola, I'd say all three areas. Okay. All right. So support, y'all. Support can look like encouragement, whether physical, right? Like high five, a hug, that good zap, fist bump, all of that, or obviously verbal encouragement. Support can also look like buying resources, maybe as a point of intervention or to expand, like, okay, my young person understands all of this. So I want to challenge them. I want them to continue to grow. Support can look like checking in just to say we did it though. Like I checked in. Yes, I asked how their day was, right? But then the quality of the check in is iffy. The consistency, the frequency of if and how and when we check in is iffy. So how was your day? Did you have a good day? Y'all. And then we turn around and say, oh, they didn't really talk to me. They didn't share much about their day. But oh my goodness, is that really shocking? Not really, right? Because we didn't tee it up well. If we didn't set them up to share well in a thorough way, then they're not. So even the support, the checking in versus I started talking about it, how the system of checking in could look like, right? Support, we hired a tutor, and I'm also going to say, I'm saying a tutor, but also even a trainer on the athletic side. We definitely are in the years of, I call them camp kids, where a lot of young people, there's these elite leagues of youth sports, and parents are investing in um, trainers and training facility memberships and all these different things for their young people that are in sports. So even tutors on both sides, right? Maybe on the extracurricular athletic side, and also on the academic side. Support, we might be sending reminders, right? We're verbally telling them. We might have notes in the backpack, stuck in their planner, stuck on their notebook. We might be sending a text, a DM, an email, depending on the age of your young person. But all of this is motivated because we care deeply. But I'm going to challenge you a bit. I'm going to push back on the, okay, I'm supporting because I care deeply, but I want you to care enough to move differently. I want you to care enough to move differently, often in a way that may be inconvenient to you, but yes, we need to move differently if we say we really care, right? You may have heard the saying people say success loves speed. And how can we get to results quickly? But we still need to make sure we understand that there's young people that are growing and developing in the midst of it all. So balance is the key versus speed. Yeah, we might want to fast forward some stuff, but balance is the key versus speed. So all of that, we talked about support. So then systems, what's the difference? Systems look like routines in both spaces for the young people, at home and at school. The expectations are clear in the system. So again, the challenge is that requires us to be clear on the goals, the products, and then what's communicated right throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the lesson. Systems have feedback loops. So it's not just yes, we're checking in. Sometimes it's not just okay, I sought some feedback. It's feedback loops, and even that phrase itself implies some consistency, some standardization, right? So yes, I received some info, some feedback, so now I can apply it. So when do I get to show you that I understand the feedback you gave me, right? How many opportunities will I have to show you that I understand and can apply the feedback you gave me? Is it every day? Is it only on certain tasks? But all of that is clearly communicated, fleshed out, understood in feedback loops. Feedback loops. Let me peek at the chat. So true regarding tutors, coaches, and trainers. They investments on both sides. Indeed, yes, and systems have feedback loops, so it's not just um, a reactive and oh, I'm remembering to ask today, right? It's consistent. It's built in. It's a part of the system. Feedback loops. So besides feedback loops, the next thing, a feedback loop, excuse me, is a repeated habit. Do I know what to expect for the flow of class? Excuse me. Yeah, there's some positives in that consistency. I often would joke with, especially middle school educators, but really all educators and parents, right? If there is a flow of when I get home from school and it's a decompressed time, I know that my check in is going to go a certain kind of way. I know that I'm going to have some time to literally just be still, right? Just think about how often we like to do that as adults. Sometimes some people make the joke about how they sit in the car, right, for a little while before going inside. So just also giving our smaller people that same space and time to decompress from their day as well. Y'all, but with these repeated habits, the positives in the consistency is, man, I had a bad day, or I'm having a bad day, talking on the classroom side first. This is another class period. I really don't want to be here. However, I know that in a moment, Mrs. Jones is going to check in with each one of us. So then, especially, I can give her my signal, my cue, my number of how I'm feeling today, and she'll spend a little more time with me. So I get to get it out, I get to release it, right? Versus Ms. Jones just went right into her lesson. We're talking about algebra or something on the board, but I'm having a terrible day. So now I'm about to cut up to get her attention because I need her to ask me what's wrong. I need some time to get it out. So now I'm about to cut up to make you see me, to make you understand, right? So the positive and the consistency. Another part of a system, accountability structures, right? People like to throw that word around quite a lot, accountability. But at the end of the day, it is a responsibility meeting initiative, right? But just who, at the end of the day, who is accountable, who's responsible, not to use the word to define the word, who's responsible for these things. It looks different at different grade levels, classroom life. It might go from this is who is the teacher's helper for today, for this week, to middle school. I used to try to spice it up a little bit more. I would say, okay, we have ambassadors, right? But it was the same thing, y'all. The same thing as teachers helpers. They were just a little bit bigger. We had a guest ambassador. So you're practicing greeting guests when they come to the room. Maybe you were the tech ambassador, right? Pulling up the slideshow, clicking the button or whatever for the day, but just same kind of thing. Again, where responsibility meets initiative. And then the test will be, right? Especially the initiative side. Once the habits, the routines, truly the system has been developed, if there's a moment where you forgot something or they know, right? Oh, we didn't choose a tech ambassador today. You're right. Okay, so who? So it becomes, again, truly part of the process, the repeated habits, the systems, truly. Then when they get a little bit older, later middle school, high school, you might even have the office aides, right? The ones where they feel themselves when they're an office aide. I'll say that for sure. One more aspect of a system, and it's last, but please don't think it's any hint at it being unimportant. So with systems, the plans are simple so people can sustain them. So we can literally rinse and repeat and it'll run itself. In a system, the plans really should not be too layered for what we're looking for, how we're doing it, expecting maybe some variables, right? And having a plan, what it's going to look like, what it's going to sound like when something gets a little off course, how to correct it. Simple though. Simple where it's not too much because we want it to be where we can repeat it and it runs itself. So one of the main takeaways, y'all, support is very emotionally driven. Support is emotional, but systems are operational. So think about when we're talking about our young people, we're talking about, and you may not say it this way, but there's certain outcomes that you want. There's certain things you want to see at a certain age. There's a certain thing you want them to be able to perform independently at home or in class. So there's certain outcomes that you want. That has to do with operations. So the systems, y'all, they fill in all the gaps, make it very clear, very plain for the operations. Support is just emotional. And a lot of times people say, you know what? The support, it really was for the adult. It made you feel good for a little while until you had to keep repeating yourself over and over and over. We're going to talk about that in a moment, right? So why this shows up at home, how this shows up at home. Parents might say, did you do your homework? Looking at the grades. Okay, study harder. Get off that phone. You need to care more. Why are you not caring? So all of these things, but that's a record. It's on repeat. But the reality is, system side, there's no system for homework time. So did you do your homework yet? That wouldn't really be a question to ask if we had a homework system that by this time every day, homework is started / done, right? But even I understand giving some flexibility for the different days. We talked a little bit ago about the extracurricular activities, but there'll still be patterns, y'all. There'll still be clusters that by Monday, Wednesday, you started your homework at blank time. But on Tuesday, Thursday, it looks like this. But If there's no system for homework time every day, did you do your homework? Did you? And just, maybe, maybe not. Also, if there's no system in place for the quiet zone, we talked about that wind down, decompression after school. You like it as an adult. Why do we feel like the young people don't want it? Like they wouldn't benefit from that. Just that quiet space, right? They're just chilling out and maybe, just maybe even mentally, I'm saying mentally checked out, but y'all understand they're not doing anything that is high pressure or high stakes at that time. They're literally in chill mode. Let me say it that way. So, what we're talking about again, the success of support with the system, Sunday planning. Y'all, today is Sunday. How many of you all, especially if you tune in with me weekly, how many of you all are training the young people in your space or maybe a Monday morning planning, right? If you're a classroom educator. So, training them for what we do as adults, where you're understanding, you're sitting down, you're looking at the flow of your week. Like, okay, so this is a pretty standard week. Oh, these are the couple things that are a little bit different this week. I have this extra meeting right here. I need to make sure I go pick this up from the cleaners by Wednesday. Those little outliers and those things that make it a little bit different to pay attention to. How often, again, are we training them for what we do as adults? So, again, that consistency and understanding how everything connects together. With that, the consequence rhythm. We talked about how systems, right? We make sure we put something in place is simple for what the focus is, how we're going to get there, how we're going to correct it when we're not getting there, how we're going to adjust for it. So, home life, that will be a consequence rhythm. So, that means the predictability of it, the consistency versus emotions driven, right? Oh, I had a rough day today and now you didn't do all these things. So, who knows what the consequence is going to be, right? We're flying off the rails. Who knows what the consequence is going to be? However, if we already talked about it, right? If this happens, because we know some of the things that may not go well, right? That homework, too much time on the phone, making sure the room is straight, that kind of thing. We plan for it. If this doesn't happen, then this will or will not happen. Slash, think about if it was that rough day for you, you don't even have to think about it as the adult because, again, the plan is already in place. Remember, we said the system has simple plans that we can repeat. Simple. We already planned for it. So, with that, though, the consequence rhythm also has reflection built in because that's always and forever. I'm always and forever going to talk about reflection because that is a big moment of the growth. So, along the way, especially after the consequence hit, right? Whether it was a natural consequence, you didn't remember to pack your jacket, it was cold outside, you felt cold all day, or if it was a given consequence, you were supposed to start your homework by 5:15, it's 5:30, you haven't started, then that's the devices for the rest of the day, or or whatever you decide. I'm just freestyling a little bit. But whatever it is, with that reflection involved where y'all talk about it. Okay, so you understand why you're getting this consequence. Yes, because I was supposed to do blank by this time and I didn't, or I was supposed to do blank and I did not, right? So just that reflection piece being a part of the consequence rhythm. So think consequence rhythm like the feedback loop. It is an example of a feedback loop. When we're also talking about your grade check routine, I'll say this. A lot of schools, districts, campuses are approaching grades differently in the sense of no, it may not be a paper slash card, report card, progress report that goes home anymore. You may have to log in and check. So that's, first of all, that's something to know at the beginning of the school year, right? Because I can't tell you the number of times where some parents were like, well, y'all never sent anything home. It's like, well, yeah, no, we haven't done that for about 6 years. You have to log in and look at the grades. So that's something to know. If everything is online, not just as the teachers put in grades, but you're going to have to click to look at the progress report or click to look at the report card, that's something to know. But even with that, when we're talking about the grade check routine, maybe you have certain, you can sign up for certain alerts for the grading. Like, okay, if there's something above or below a 70, if something's missing, slash, then also using an alarm or reminders so you're at least proactively checking in weekly, right? Then you have that time with your young person about the reflection, for better or for worse. So okay, so this looked like it went really well this week, this. Okay, so what are some things you did this week that made you successful? Slash, okay, this week was awesome opposite. So what are some things we need to do differently next week? What are some things that happened this week that we can't let happen next week? So still that reflection piece. But all of this, y'all, that's a system. Those are different components, different aspects of systems that are going to make it that much smoother at home. The reality is, and I think often about parents, how they get really, really frustrated because they're repeating reminders, right, without the routine, without the consistency or timestamps. Before you do blank, do this kind of thing. The reality is, your repeated reminders are going to become background noise and wallpaper. They've heard it a million times. They really don't even hear you anymore. They really don't even hear you anymore because it's just such a part of the background, such a part of the day, if you will, right? So to keep your sanity, to keep your frustrations lower in that space, make sure that there's a routine in place with the reminders, that there's a system in place with the reminders. Otherwise, again, it's just wallpaper. It's just in the back, y'all. Okay? Because again, caring households can be full of effort, but also full of stress because there's no structure. And that creates tension. That creates tension for everybody. Really quickly, y'all, tell me in the chat, what is something that you are tired of repeating in your house? What's something you're tired of repeating in your house? I'll wait a couple moments. Right. Some of y'all are like, Anika, which one? Just choose one. Just choose one. What is one thing you're tired of repeating in your house around young people that you support? Talk to me. One thing you're tired of repeating. Now, while y'all are thinking about it, we just spent some time talking to the parents. We talked on the home side. Y'all know I was going to talk on the school classroom side as well. So let's go. So school life, where we're talking about support. So schools may say, districts may say, well, we support our teachers. We support our students. We support achievement. But we're learning that sometimes we confuse, right, over helping, over teaching kind of thing with true support and true helpfulness and empowerment, right? So if we're supporting teachers, we're supporting students, we're supporting achievement, y'all, but if there is no common intervention flow, so if Mrs. Jones is intervening one way at one time, Mrs. Porter is intervening another way a different time, and Miss Bashir is intervening a different way another time, then that is not going to help the whole campus, the whole grade level, because it's not consistent, right? Well, we're talking about grading clarity, and a lot of y'all have probably seen these different articles where, you know, teachers are like, well, the young people didn't do this assignment, but then there may be a grading policy that says, hey, the least we want you to do is put a 50 in, so at least they can recover. But if there isn't grading clarity, like a true grading policy for if this applies to all of the assignments, if this is only on like the assignments that are weighted more, right? Then that could become a problem because maybe Mrs. Jones has been teaching for 25 years and I'm giving this little boy a 0 because he did nothing, right? And yes, his mama can come see me about it, kind of thing. So I'm being a little bit funny, but also just seriously, the clarity in the grading and making sure that the parents understand as well what the grading policy is, when it applies to certain things, or if it's across the board, all of that. So someone said for the chores, okay, today is Tuesday. Did you remember that blank chores need to be done? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So something in place for that though, right? Something in place. Like we know it's Tuesday. If there's a certain, I don't know, like a certain, I don't want to say a sticker, but a certain ribbon, a certain something visual that is around the chores, even, and just so that becomes an eventual connection as a reminder. Like, you didn't even have to say it. You put this up, they saw it. It's right by the thing or things that the chores include for Tuesday. And it's like, okay, now I know to do. Right? Nobody had to say anything. We're flowing. We did that. So, also on the school side, we're talking about systems, communication consistency. So, a lot of schools have different things, different platforms and supports they use. Some schools have the automatic phone call, right? It'll just send a little automated voice. This is what's happening. These are some upcoming events. Some schools have the different email platforms where they include all the flyers you need, where teachers can still send an email to all of their parents. There's also like Class Dojo, Remind 101, those kind of platforms that teachers often have parents sign up for so they can communicate as needed. And again, is there consistency in it though across the board? Is there a minimum that has been communicated? Make sure you're at least communicating about the events, grades, right? Slash was nothing said. Was nothing said. Also, school system side, where we talked about, okay, this is the goal, these are the actions. What do we do when we get off track? How do we fix it to get back to the goal? So, what do we do when a student is struggling? What's the process? What's the response? Are we super clear? And when I say super clear, not just clear, but is it simple though, so that this can be rinsed and repeated, so it can be done over and over again as needed. Slash, if expectations are not aligned campus wide. And so basically, that's the summary, because all the things we said, we talked about how it has to be consistent across the board, right? As much as possible. So the expectations, are we saying, hey, everybody is going to increase by blank percentage points in each content area? Or are we saying that everybody's going to work towards a passing grade, not have any discipline referrals, have excellent attendance, right? What are the expectations and the alignment for that? If we don't have the system in place that way, if we're just responding, remember we said we have these emotional responses. If we're just responding, I'm gonna pause for a minute. Y'all, support really just becomes random acts of kindness and random acts of care. If there's no standardization, if it's not a simple plan we can rinse and repeat, it becomes random acts of care, because it is random. It's dependent. It's dependent on how much time do I have today? Ooh, how am I feeling? How much energy do I have today? Or any other resource, how much of it do I have? So it depends on too many variables, and it's inconsistent. So it gets an inconsistent result. Because if the system is not in place, then literally support is random acts of care. And then the thing about also support versus systems is that good people, right, could be providing a lot of support, but they're going to burn out because the system is bad, because the system is raggedy. They're going to burn out. So we're making sure we're talking about just a few key things that are essential, right, that have to be a part of a functioning system at home and at school, because the goal is, like, we don't want you to burn out. That's the goal. And sometimes what we call burnout is really friction. When people start making those decisions for what they are and are not going to do, it's really friction because there were too many unclear situations and too many problems that occurred that were preventable. And people start to see that. And so sometimes when we call it burnout, it's not exactly burnout, it's friction and lines were drawn. That's the reality sometimes. So a lot of times students are labeled as unmotivated, or we might think that, that listen, you're just being lazy, you're not trying hard enough. But the reality is they could be confused because, Mrs. Jones said this, but when I got to Miss Bashir's class, she said something that was opposite of what Mrs. Jones said. And then when the principal got on, the PA, the principal said something else, right? So sometimes when we think they're unmotivated, they're just confused because they're getting uh, conflicting information. So they decided to stop, they decided to shut down. So, with that in mind, you all, well, we're talking about the idea of beliefs. Beliefs being this is what we say we do, this is what we stand for. Then we talked about this before, the second level, the second layer being the culture, the systems. The systems feed the culture, you all, right? This is how we get it done. These are the things, the plans that are in place to make it happen. If this is what we say we support, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is how we do it. This is the system in place, right? We have our feedback loops, we have our communication cycles, we have our consequences flushed out so we can rinse and repeat it. So, literally, the culture is the systems, and then again, the bottom step is the action. Okay, so if we have communication, if we have feedback loops, we have consequence cycles, then this is what they're composed of. This is what goes into making them. Y'all, and this may challenge us a little more. Y'all, like Anika, you already challenged just a few times, right? So this may challenge you a little more, but motivation is really overrated when systems are weak. Motivation is overrated when systems are weak because if it's not clear, then I can be as excited and energetic, but trying to get the work done is going to take and require that much more of me to get it done. So motivation can rise and fall. We know that. But systems carry people when feelings change. Remember, we said support was emotional, but systems are operational. So systems carry you through the feeling and emotional changes. That applies to everybody, to kids, to adults. When it's fitness time, when it's money time, when it's studying time, whether it's faith, it's leadership, you don't rise to intentions, but you'll fall to systems. Either the systems work, right, or are being improved or not. And that is the rise or the fall, the make or break. Because think about it this way, a lot of us know what to do, but do we have a structure in place to keep doing it though? A lot of us know what to do. Like, okay, so if this is happening, right, my child seems unmotivated, I'm going to try this. If I'm at work and I see a young person is struggling, then I'm going to do this. The key is, the difference is, do we have structure, the system, in order to keep doing it though? That is not just again, a reactive. It's not oh, I'm helping, it feels good, but this is something that we do. FR, for real, for real. Let me see in the chat. I don't see a light bulb without being standardized. Support is just a random act of kindness and care. We're just doing stuff. We're doing stuff when we have the time and the energy. That's it. That's what support is. And think about that, applies everywhere in your life. Support is just a random act of kindness and care when we have the capacity, right? Whether it's time, it's money, knowledge. That's what it is if there is not a system in place. Y'all, and the reason we're talking about this today, because it's timely, right? Summer's near. And so I wanted to be clear in the tone where we're thinking about summer supports versus summer systems. For a lot of families, summer success might mean expensive camps. I've definitely seen some camps that were $500, $650 a week and well beyond. And I'm just like, wow, right? So for some families, success means maybe constant worksheets, maybe big academic plans, right? But what our young people more often need during the summer is rest and balance, y'all. They need a rhythm and a purpose. So, yeah, maybe we're practicing, but why not practice in context, right? More real world recognition. What about, okay, we're practicing reading, right? Because we all should read regularly, but maybe 20 minutes, maybe for 20 minutes. And even with math, right? We talk, instead of these big academic plans, maybe just twice a week, but some chores for sure. Some chores just to keep them right? Building what we said, that accountability, confidence building. So some of this is going to be just real conversations, you all. Some of it is just going to be real conversations as we're helping to make sure their confidence is being built. What should not be happening during the summer is we're not scheduling into infinity and beyond. We're not doing that because summertime, the connection and balance, that aspect, that part of the system is what's most important. So when we're talking about summertime, though, something to keep in mind while you're balancing, because sometimes what happens is we're like, whoo, it's summertime, right? And everybody relaxes and sits down, and that was it. We don't think about things for a while. But the summer slide, and we've heard about that where people say, oh, they don't remember, they're starting to forget all of that. The summer slide often starts as the schedule slides. So, no, we don't want to schedule into infinity and beyond, but we do want to have some things, right? Some things in place, the balance. So, children don't always lose their skills first, they lose their rhythm first. And so, think about how easily we get out of rhythm during the summertime. So, y'all let me know in the chat. Y'all let me know your opinion. So, what disappears first in the summer? Is it sleep? Is it reading? Is it chores or focus? And my house is sleep. All right, we start staying up later. What disappears first in summer? Sleep, reading, chores, or focus? While y'all are thinking about that, y'all, even AI is teaching this lesson, right? When we're talking about how schedule starts to slide, that impacts other things because people keep asking for better tools. But tools without the systems, y'all, is going to create chaos faster. So chaos was already happening. Now it's just coming faster because, again, the system isn't in place. So to this extent, I just saw a post someone shared with me where a parent, because it was shared by a principal anonymously, right? And she said, he or she said, I wish I was making this up. So a parent approached the principal and said, hey, I just want to let you know that, yes, I did file this grievance on you because ChatGPT told me that you didn't handle this situation well. You didn't handle this situation how you should have, and you need some more training on how to deal with my child. And so she said, I just wanted to let you know I filed a grievance on you. So it was like, what? All right. So again, she had a tool, but she didn't follow the system because there's definitely protocols and things when you have, an issue and things are going on up at the schoolhouse, right? So that was just seemed very extra out of order and really extra and chaotic, like we said, without the proper system, right? It got really chaotic because how do we even begin to address this, right? Because the system and the flow wasn't followed. Reading and sleep, focus and sleep. Okay. Y'all, so if a child already lacks, right, the routine, the discipline, the reflection, and possibly the thinking habits, more tools alone are not going to solve that, right? The same applies in classrooms. And so when we're talking about AI, I want you to include a variety of apps in the part of that conversation because many of those apps are AI driven, they embed AI, and they're positioned as solutions to a variety of common pain points, right? Both at home and in the classroom. But it's really structure and systems that have to be in place. Otherwise, that app is not going to help with the lack of routine, lack of discipline, reflection, and thinking habits. It's just going to become one more thing to kind of demonstrate and show how those are not where they need to be. Okay, y'all let me know if that makes sense. So, really quickly, you're like, all right, Anika, you say you're going to talk about what to do next. We talked about some of the systems, right, to define, to tighten up in the different spaces. But let's take a step back and think about it this way. If outcomes are off, I want you to ask these 3 questions. 1, what are we repeating verbally, right? Someone already shared in the chat. What phrase do we keep saying? So let's start there. 2, so what system is missing? What process doesn't exist? So going back to Did you do your homework? That's what we're repeating consistently, right? So what system is missing? A homework routine. I'm going to start homework by blank. After I've decompressed, had my snack, I start homework at blank time. Step 3, what one rhythm can we install this week? Choose one. Choose one. You know what your pain point is most right now. You know what's bothering you most. Maybe it's the nightly backpack reset, if the backpack is being reset at night, right? Maybe it's the Sunday uh, weekly and flow, the planning taking place on Sundays. Maybe the daily reading time. Maybe it's the teacher grade check cadence slash parents login grade check cadence. And then maybe it's just the overall review, the weekly review, the weekly reset. Y'all, because small systems create big peace. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You take your one thing that you know, oh, Anika, that when you say that, that was my one, because I say this way too much. You take that one thing, and I want you to ask those 3 questions, right? Because that small change, that small system can create big peace for you. So I want to challenge you all. Y'all stop assuming that people need more pressure or they need you to run in with reminders, with all the we want to make sure we're helping to provide support via systems, support with systems, right? Clearer expectations, fewer moving parts. Remember earlier we talked about how the random act of care and kindness is because it depends on energy, it depends on time, it depends on money. So it doesn't have a lot of variables. It has fewer moving parts when the system is successful. The expectations are clear. It allows us to be consistent. We build in those feedback loops so they know what's going to be asked. They know when they get to reflect, when they get to share, and all of that lined up. Y'all, we have repeatable wins, and that's the goal. Again, chaos can make people look lazy. If people are overwhelmed, a lot of people shut down. So you might, oh, they're just lazy, right? But they really, really could be overwhelmed, but chaos is making it look that way. So design, when we say design, meaning designing your systems, your support systems, that reveals the actual potential. All right. Y'all, if this conversation again resonated with you, I have some resources I'm dropping the link for. And this is the same link that is in our bio. Okay. And realistically, you all, there's so much. I have things for families, for educators, for leaders, again, who, okay, Anika, I hear what you said about systems, and I want to look further because we want to make sure that we're not just supporting and then causing stress and or frustration to ourselves, right? I have resources there to help with that. If you're a parent trying to reset the home dynamic, an educator, you're trying to create stronger learning environments, or an organization who wants better outcomes, like if you said those 3 things, then yeah, we're having a disconnect between where we want to be and where we are now. Y'all, there is something there for you. Again, if you haven't already, please do subscribe because we're building real solutions here. I'll get a little more specific. Parents, we have an SEL starter bundle, and we also have a resource called The Other Side of the Report Card. That is amazing going into summertime. Okay, y'all make sure to check that out. Educators, we have a discovery chat. How can holistic fluency support you individually, right? We have the AI toolkit and membership. Y'all, if you're like, you know what, this is some good conversation, I can only imagine how much better it gets. So we really get into some of the details and nuances and talking about math, AI, meeting communication. If you have a workshop inquiry, please do connect with us. Leaders, whether district or the community partners. So listen, we have a 20-minute consulting connecting chat that we can set up. So that's also at the link in the chat. All right. So again, y'all, I really appreciate you spending time with us today. And I hope to see you all next week. No, not next week. And this is the second time today. Next week is Mother's Day. So we will not stream next week. Okay. But I will see you all again soon, a little bit later in May. In the meantime, y'all, let me know what you need. If you have any questions about any of the resources, any ideas you want to see for some of the topics, right? And we'll make sure to work it in. Have a great evening. Bye bye.